Hi, this is Lori from GLP-1 Journey in Review. Today we're doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us JC Calamity Jane, who is a GLP-1 user. We're going to talk about her journey and maybe some of her hobbies and so forth. I want to remind everybody that I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're just talking about what works for us. If you find this information useful at all, please smash that like and subscribe button. And JC Calamity Jane also has a channel which will be linked down below in the description. So then go over to her channel and like and subscribe. It really does help. Um, and with all that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit something about yourself?
Sure. As you said, JC Calamity Jane. I have been on specifically on Zep Bound since July 16th. And so this would be the start of my, let's go with 12th week, right? Yeah. So the Wednesday is usually my injection day. So so far so good, and we can get into the details later. Probably the highlight of being beyond, beyond just being on Zepbound is that I am a type 1 diabetic since about the age of
Mhm.
14. So I've managed living with type 1 diabetes since for about 30 plus years now. And so as a result of being a type 1 diabetic, the complications that can come with this as you get older, my apologies. As you get older, um, my physician, my primary care provider, and my
Mhm.
endocrinologist for the last couple of years have been very concerned because my weight was going up, and so eventually led to me being on Zepbound. Long story short, and again, we'll get into the details, I'm sure. Aside from that, I enjoy very much. I have my chickens, and you see my chickens on my channel. I love them. I have about 27 of them right now,
Wow.
24 hens. Yeah, 24 hens, and then two two very for sure roosters. I have what I call a reluctant rooster. I think because I don't have enough hens, the hen to rooster ratio, he's somewhat of a reluctant rooster, but I do have 27 of them. And then I have my we have our vegetable garden that we attempt to do in the fall and the summer, and so hopefully eventually we'll start highlighting us getting into that. And then yeah, so that's ultimately a little bit about me. Of course, I enjoy cooking meals of the week. We cook as a family, and so that's a part of our
Mhm.
experience as well. So yeah.
So, what part of type 1 diabetic does this make your journey different from a person who's not diabetic?
So probably the most significant difference, and I probably should have said this at the start, and you'll want to for sure put kind of a disclaimer. Um, Currently, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Ozempic, Wegovy, none of these FDA has approved for type 1 diabetes. Primarily, why it's not approved for type 1 diabetes is because the FDA is very concerned about hypoglycemia. It's a real
Mhm.
reality of type 1 diabetics, low blood sugar, especially at night, things of that nature. FDA is very hesitant to approve things for type 1 diabetics if there is a high, and you know I won't even pretend to say what their percentage is,
Mhm.
but if there's even a slight chance that there are significant hypoglycemic episodes, it is not something that will be approved. It's still considered experimental. So of course, when my doctor first put in for Manjaro, that was immediately denied. So then he went through the route of Zepbound for the purpose because of my BMI met the range, and so that's why I was able to get approved for Zepbound due to the BMI, not as type 1 diabetic. The impact as it relates to diabetes is that, and what I have witnessed in my journey is that because of the food suppression, the slower digestion of food, um, the sort of the nature in which those of us who are on these GLP-1s and GIPs, you know, the um, the focus on proteins, fibers, there it's natural, it's very natural that there's a lower carb intake. I don't set out to do a low carb or a keto diet, but I have lowered my carbs, and as a result you're not, you're going to have to lower the amount of the basal rate, and the basal rate is the constant rate of a tiny amount of insulin that's going using the insulin pump going through your body at all times. Those without type 1 diabetes or without the use of insulin pump, um, there's naturally a basal rate of insulin going through your body at all times. And then when I have to bolus, the insulin to carb ratio, the insulin sensitivity has to be adjusted accordingly, because carbs are not breaking down as quickly as it would without. For someone not on a GLP-1, where the carbs are not breaking down as quickly, so you have to make those adjustments to your the amount of insulin, how the insulin is interacting in your body. So that's the biggest significance in
Okay.
everything.
So, like, has the amount of insulin changed since you've been on the Zep
Significant,
Bound?
significant, 100% has changed. So the first day so I took it on a Wednesday. By the next day, Thursday, I was just going about my regular day, right? So I knew I was going to have, I think I had a smoothie for breakfast that day, which was, it's something, smoothies end up being about anywhere from 38 to 41 grams of carbs. So I took my normal, my endocrinologist knew I was going to be on it. He said, let's
Hmm.
kind of see what happens before we make adjustments. And so I took my regular dose of, I entered into my insulin pump, 41 grams of carbs. So it would bolus enough insulin for that amount. I would say within a couple, drank my smoothie, do my normal work day. And I started, my blood sugar started, our glucose started dropping. And so I think that, and I haven't been down near the 40s in a long time, but it was getting into the high 40s. And so I was able to recover, and then I immediately sent the message to my endocrinologist. I provided him what my numbers had been overnight, and then the dose, because I started, similar to most, started on 2.5 mg. He did some quick adjustments to my insulin sensitivity and then my insulin to carb ratio. He made those adjustments, and I've not looked back since. It's been maintained. I'm taking kind of the biggest difference. So the way this insulin pump works is a reservoir inside. That reservoir normally has to be changed. It's the extended reservoir, so the reservoir itself can, or the reservoir itself can last.
Hmm.
Sorry, the infusion set can last a week, but you have to change. You typically have to change the reservoir. Or in the past, I was changing out the reservoir every 3 days. Since being on Zep Bound, I only have to change the reservoir out once a week.
That's great.
So
And I can relate to that.
yeah,
Because my wife is a type 2 diabetic. And when we started eating better and she was starting her Monjaro after a little bit on it, her blood sugar kept dropping because she was on insulin twice a day, metformin, and now basically her type 2 diabetes is in remission. So she's not taking anything for it except for the Monjaro, but that's more for weight loss and obviously to keep her in remission. Um,
understood.
I know type 1, or I'm assuming type 1 diabetes doesn't go into remission. You're always going to be on some sort of insulin.
Some sort of insulin. That there of course are some studies out there. They've been studying with the different, they have like the inhale, like the breathable insulin now, or the
Hmm.
inhaled insulin now. I know there's been some studies with even the transplants, pancreas transplants, and are the islets, the cells at the cellular
Right.
level transplants. And I think there was even a most recent study even this past year with like the stem cell research and things like that have been successful. Is just, again, not out there for the world to take advantage of yet. But for the most part, we'll be on insulin until I'm told otherwise, and everything. So it's usually a long term, and with that comes a lot of, realities of what, insulin in and of itself can, we need it. It's a required thing, but like any medicine over time, it can certainly take its toll on the body and everything.
So how much weight have you lost since you started the Zep Bound?
So, so perfect. So I'm right as of last, because weigh in tomorrow, but as of last week, I started at 288 in July, and as of last week, I
Hmm.
hit 260. And so that's about
That's
28
great.
pounds so far.
That's
So yeah,
awesome. And
it's
that's
very
12 weeks.
exciting. That's what we,
That's great.
yeah, and that's
Do
and I
you have
weigh in
any?
tomorrow, so we'll see.
That's great. Do you have any other conditions like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or anything like that, along with
High, high blood pressure, and I am still on. I take just one medication for that, and that's the I never know. It's the one that's the HCTZ one, the basically the diuretic. And
hmm
so my goal is that I have been checking my blood pressure, and I have hit. It's been normal, but I'm more than likely I'm going to probably stay on that for a little bit. Even if
Absolutely.
my blood, yeah, even if my blood pressure is getting normal, the diuretic component for type 1 diabetics is really important just to help protect our kidneys. And so there's that element. And then I am on Crestor for the cholesterol. That was
hmm
more of a borderline is where I
hmm
was at there. And so if I can, I would love to get off that one, especially just with the eating and losing weight. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that.
Absolutely. So, what was your aha moment that made you decide to go on the Zep Bound?
Uh, my doctor convincing me that if I didn't like it, I didn't have to take it. So probably about this time in 2023, my endocrinologist had actually offered, because again, they're always concerned about a weight. The weight
Hmm
with anyone with diabetes, they're concerned about a weight regardless of the type. And so my endocrinologist had offered me Trulicity at the time. She was like,
hmm
"Hey, have you heard about this? Da 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 da." I think before I let, and I told her my concerns, because at that point, 2023, you're just hearing that people are running to the bathroom, having gastric issues, having all these things are happening to a person's body. And it's like, look, I'm trying to manage type 1 diabetes. I'm not trying to manage a gastric problem. And then, there was also concerns because some of the, they always, and I get it, you have to lead with the possibilities. But of course, the possibilities were pancreatitis and then gastroparesis. And here I'm thinking, it's like, I'm already a type 1 diabetic. These are, I'm trying to avoid complications in life, right? It's like, why would I take something that's the, if we're leading with that, why do I want to take it, right? Well, I was very hesitant for a while. And then a year ago in the summer, my my endocrinologist once again said, there's other medications. Are you interested? It's like, still not interested. And so finally, when I saw my primary in July, I was at my highest at 292, and that's the highest. And through the two weight loss journeys I have been through, and we can talk about the first one in a second, but 292 was the highest I had ever been. And he just looks at me. It's like, we've got to do something about this. What do we want to do? And so I told him my concerns once again. He goes, look, if you don't like it, if it causes you problems, you don't have to keep taking it. And I go, let's go. And so he got the prescription. I took it the next day and haven't looked back. So here we are. So, and all those gastric, I did have a couple of close friends and coworkers that had kind of told me their experience and kind of what to watch out for. That's when I started getting on YouTube, listening.
hmm
I think YouTube may have thought I was a bot, because anybody that said something about something, I started subscribing to their pages, and I just started deep into what were people experiencing, and then just quickly learned that it's it's the old we kind of use the term garbage in, garbage out. Depending on what
hmm
you intake will determine what your side effects are to some extent. And so, okay, I don't really eat these types of foods anyway, so that's not going to be a big loss. And so let's see what happens. Staying hydrated, well, I need to be hydrated, right? And
hmm
so getting protein, getting electrolytes, well, those are things I'm doing already. So um, once I kind of received that education and that insight, it definitely helped me prepare on how to potentially avoid some of those symptoms that people had talked about.
That's great. Have you had any of the side effects?
Not the only one. So, and I'm trying to think if it was even on 2 point. Probably, I tend to do it. I've only titrated up one. So it started with 2.5, and then now still on 5. I feel like that first week there's some constipation, but again, some good old Miralax, some
Hmm.
what is it? Star fruit, things like that. I just make sure to get my flaxseed, make sure to get my fiber in. If I need to do some Miralax, I will. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do like I said, I do my shot on Wednesday. So on Thursday, I'll start drinking some Miralax, and then maybe Saturday or Sunday, I'll drink some too, just to kind of make sure things keep moving. So, and the biggest thing is, like I said, staying hydrated is the biggest thing that helps for me.
I've used dragon fruit, red dragon fruit, and that seems to help.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the word, dragon fruit. I don't know why I said star fruit, but yeah, dragon fruit. That's the one. So yeah, I know, and I think I between you and I think Gray's even talked about it. So I've been picking that up, and so that's helped out a lot. So that's made a world of
so
difference. And then about the only other side effect, um, yeah, I feel like that's the biggest one. I don't get the tiredness or things like that. There are some weeks where the suppression is pretty significant, and I just try to kind of focus on, get my protein in, and if I get my protein in through drink or through meat or whatever, and then I'll tend to do fruit. Like I may not do some rice or baked
mhm.
potatoes or things or sweet potatoes, but what I'll do, but I can do like cantaloupe, watermelon, berries. I'll get some other stuff because I don't want to be liquid all day. I want some solids
Right.
in there. So.
So let's talk about your other weight loss journeys.
Oh yeah, so in I had the experience of having a loved one. My dad had type 2 diabetes, and from his 40s and stuff, and then in 2011 he was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with end stage renal failure, and that was September of 2011. And here so he had to start the dialysis and things like that. And my biggest sort of, like, I know I'm type 1, I've got to manage these complications, I don't want to end up on dialysis. That's been my biggest thing. And so I set out to say, come, that was September 2011. I said, come start. And why I said the start of the year, right? I kind of set myself up there. But the start of the year, I'm going to start, like, I've got to figure this out. I was, I had X number of years before I turned 40. I want to go in my 40s as healthy as possible. So in January 2012, I signed up for Weight Watchers. And that's when people were still going in
Yeah.
person. It was, yep. And it was the Point Plus plan. And I will say this till the cows come home. They should have never changed the Point Plus program. That was
No.
the best program they had, and I think you started seeing them going downhill when they changed that program. But anyway, this isn't about Weight Watchers. But I started on that. I, I now significant things. I was single at the time. I didn't have a long commute to work. This will become important later. I did not have a very long commute to work. I was single, living my best life, right? In my 30s, so, or late 30s. And so I did really successful. I lost over 100 pounds by, uh, February, March of that next year. I had lost over 100 pounds. I started about 250-ish and then got down to about 250, 255, somewhere in there. Hit lifetime. I was asked to be a leader. Something significant, I want to say. So in January, I started Weight Watchers. In March of that year, I got turned on to Zumba, and I started
Mhm.
doing Zumba like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then by the time I was, I had lost that weight, I was doing Zumba 4 to 5 times a week. By that, there was a certain point I was doing so much Zumba that I don't know if you remember when Pizza Hut had those 3 mini pizzas that they would
Mhm.
sell. They were like, I would go to Zumba, go pick up those mini pizzas just to just to make sure my uh, calorie intake was somewhat balanced, right? And so and I mean, didn't have to do the surgery thing. I mean, solid, right? I have a picture of me holding a fish when I was at my, sort of that sort of fit, if you want, fitness, if you so to speak. Well, lived a good life for a couple years at Lifetime. Then I eventually moved to where I was in a bigger city. Commuting took over my life. I had a good, I would leave the house about 5:30, sometimes come home at 6. Um, and the last thing I was interested in doing was finding somewhere to work out, finding a Zumba class. I was in a new place, new, all the things, right?
Hmm.
I didn't want to get home and then get back in a vehicle. I tried doing Weight Watchers online and tried all the things. And basically every year gain 10, 15 pounds back, eventually leading to July of um, July of 2025, where I'm at 292 gain. So I gained all the 100 pounds back plus 40. So,
Wow.
oh yeah. So that was weight loss journey number one. And there's some good lessons learned in that journey. I think that's why you see me when you see me in the chats. If I hear somebody's on maintenance, I tend to sort of kind of latch on to those of
Hmm.
you that are in maintenance, because what I did not do is I did not take stock of what maintenance looks like, because there is that when you're losing you're getting that weekly celebration, right? Whether it's at the Weight
Right.
Watch meeting, whether you're sending, because I would send text to my family every week what my weigh-in was, right? Good, up, down, all, sideways, whatever, right? And so you get that whatever, and in maintenance, no one, there's no longer that how much did you lose or how what'd you do? And what so that's not even get replaced by are you the same? Like no one's saying, are you the same? There's not a, what's the catchphrase for maintenance, right? And then how you introduce foods back, right? Or do you introduce food? Like it's kind of like this thing. That's why I like the way the GLP-1 community and what's happening here, because it's less about this yes, you may have to consider increasing your caloric intake and things like that,
Slowly.
and then slowly, right? But there's also this thing that doesn't, there's this thing that's helping. There's all this new knowledge now about what these peptides and hormones that either they're inactive in our bodies, they're missing, they're resistant. I don't, again, at some point, I really want to get into the heavy science of GLP-1, because I'm curious as to what's happening. Like, are they inactive? Did they never exist? Are they just not functioning like they should I'd be curious, right? There's this other element that just because I eat one, and we'll just use the example of Lay's because they have the slogan, just because I eat one chip today doesn't become by Thursday I'm eating a whole bag. you
Hmm.
know, and it's like there's this extra support now, right? And so we'll see what happens. But and then the other pluses is I kind of the nice thing about I'd be curious what your thoughts on this are. Having gone through a weight loss journey before, especially losing that much, your pattern. You're gonna go up some weeks, you're gonna go down some weeks, you're gonna be at zero some weeks, and some weeks may turn into 3 weeks. You sort of know those moments happen. So when they're happening, even, yeah, yes, I'm paying for the money for it. Yes, I'm doing this, whatever. But your body is your body. This is just
Hmm.
one part of the puzzle of what's supporting you through this journey. Your body is still going to react like, I see the body as this functioning system of all the time. Anything can interact with it that says, we're stalling out this week, and that's just what we're going to do, no matter what happens. So I there is less stress or worry and sort of what the scale is doing, and I think so
Hmm.
that's the blessing I have having done it before. Um, and then yeah, so that's kind of my experience with the other weight loss journey. And then like I said, in between those times, like I said, I would get back on the app version of Weight Watchers. I would some to get down, but then it gets exhausting. Especially if you're not the primary cook all the time. Because I would
Hmm.
bug my husband sometimes, be like, well, how much rice did you put in there? How much this did you put in there? And at that point, while he is very supportive, what he's not detailed, right? And so he's not trying to get into the details of what he put in a meal. He's like, just guess. And it's like, yeah, that's not, that may not work. So yeah, but here I am, and like I said, so far it's doing what it's supposed to do, and I'm excited about
Yep. For me, with maintenance, uh, it's not that it's hard because you're pretty much doing what you were before, and I'm still on the medication. You just,
that.
for you, have to determine if you want to be on the medication, if you want to lower your dose, space out. Because if you do the same thing exactly that you were doing, you're going to continue to lose weight. So
Right,
either you have to exercise less, which makes no sense to me, or you
right,
have to increase your calories so that you could stay nice and even. So, I just did it slowly, and I did lower my dose, so I was hoping a little bit of appetite would come back, and it did, but I didn't want to have the food noise. So, again, you have to figure
right,
out
right.
what's right for you. And slowly I increased my calories a little bit. Now, one thing that I
Okay,
really liked about the GLP-1 medication is I've had absolutely nothing off limits. Of course, moderation and how often you have it is one thing. If I go on vacation, if I feel like, hey, let's go out for an ice cream, we're going to go out for an ice cream. But that doesn't happen
right,
often. So
right.
nothing's been off limits, and that was my problem with Weight Watchers is you were so busy with, oh, I can't have this, I can't have that, that it just wasn't sustainable.
Right. And that's yeah, and that's the big deal for me too, because it's like for me when and as the word is defined, when I hear sustainable, it's like 10 years from now, what am I doing? 20 years from
Hmm.
now, what am I eating and doing? And so I tend to avoid plans that sort of don't allow me to make those adjustments throughout my lifetime. So yeah.
Now my wife doesn't cook, but if she did, and I saw that there was a lot more rice than I wanted, I just know I'm going to have a smaller portion. It's not off limits
Right,
or anything, but
right,
again,
exactly.
the GLP-1s helped me do that. Where before it was like if it was in front of me, I ate it.
Right, right. Exactly. So yeah, and I just sort of and I it, what's been the most so probably the most fascinating thing was when I woke up the next day after taking it was definitely the reduction of we talk about the inflammation, the pain, like
Hmm.
you know I mean for a good while I was living that life of where do struggling to get up, right, and wanting to get out of bed. And then when you do get out of bed, there's you're calling out to the you're saying the sweet Jesus or help me Jesus and all the things just
Hmm.
to kind of move from different positions. And for that to be just non it's the weirdest feeling. It's the again the loss of inflammation, the loss of that pain that it's because one of the things I really miss the most, I know a lot of times people reflect on, oh, getting into a pair of jeans, getting into a whatever, getting back, and it's not to say
Hmm.
I don't have those moments, right? But for me, it was, I remember the level of energy that I had when I was doing that
Hmm.
Zumba and that, there was, I mean, you can taste it. It's this
Right.
how you moved about the world was just different. The confidence you had in your balance and your step. Like sometimes, when I go walking out in the woods or I'm going on a hike with my husband or we go, when we go on cruises and stuff, there's this hesitation to do things because of one, can I am I allowed to do a thing? Like,
Hmm.
we were booking cruises and stuff, and there were some different adventures that I wanted to do, but there's a weight capacity. And sometimes, they fudge on it, but at the same time, I'm gonna make the decision of do I want to risk something because they do have a capacity, right? And so, I miss being able to move about the world without that restriction because of, either their concerns, because of, insurance purposes, or my concerns because of, what is my balance and what is my, surety in my footing and my placement of going about the world.
Do you work out at
That's
all?
the I do. I do. I like that. I kind of just stick to at home right now.
Uh-huh.
And so I get a lot of walking in. Of course, being out with the chickens and stuff like that, just do the walking. We have the property allows us to get some hikes in and walk around. And then I do just the Zumba. The Zumba I follow on YouTube. Has a YouTube channel, but also has like a separate
Hmm.
website that he has
Right.
different videos. So I try to do that, and then my strength training. And so I try to get that strength training, true sort of weights and stuff to at least Tuesday, Thursday, and then on Saturdays I'll mix the strength training with whatever I still do cardio. That's important to
Hmm.
me. But because of that, I do Zumba, which and I'm trying. Yeah, there's no really, I've been debating about whether to kind of try to show or demonstrate to people how you can introduce toning into cardio. Um, but
That would be good.
you know, yeah, I make sure to do, when because I was doing all that Zumba before, you can introduce light weights to Zumba, right? But then it's also just about certain move, like when you're doing something just as simple as this, you want to make sure you're bringing, create that pressure for your body, so it's toning your chest, it's toning your arms. When you're moving your legs, move from the hip, don't move from the top of your leg, move from your hip, and that's how you get that lower stomach area and your obliques and stuff like that. So there's ways to move your body even in cardio that you can still get that toning and that strength training in there.
And
Again, I'm
there's
not a
plenty ways
I'm not a personal trainer.
there's plenty ways you could get exercise and cardio. And like I said, my wife has COPD, so she can't really do a lot. But we make sure we dance in the house every now and then, and so
Oh, so
forth. And
good, man.
you gotta get in what you can. Walks, walking is perfect. I mean, it
Right,
helps not just with your circulatory. It helps with your digestion, your weight loss. It helps with your lymphatic system. It
right.
just helps
Yeah.
in so many ways.
I mean, yeah, another YouTube channel I follow for work because I use it with my mom is the Yes to Next. It's a daughter and her mother joins her, and so they do a lot of. So the mother will do a lot of exercise. Sometimes she's standing, but she'll do a lot of seated things just so
Hmm.
that there's multiple ways to do these. And so when I was starting out, and I still use them today when I need because sometimes the daughter will do intermediate stuff, and so, but sometimes if it's like I just need to move day, but I don't need to move intensely, I'll use that video because they're 30 minutes, to 40-minute exercises. She has some 5 and 20-minute ones too, but I'll do that because it's still that movement, and walking is, and there's a lot of I don't a lot of studies will tell you, walking in and of itself solves for so many things.
So many
it
things.
it is the freest and the most impactful version of activity that we can do. So
Absolutely. So what does a day in food look like for you?
stay in food. So I will say most mornings I'm just not. Even though w- breakfast is my favorite food when I travel because I love breakfast food, but I hate making it at home. So unfortunately, during Monday through Friday, it's usually going to be a simple. Either I'll do a glucerna or just a Premier Protein. I'll make sure to get some fiber in, so I'll do a true proper smoothie. So the Premier Protein powder with some. I tend to focus on the mixed berry
Mhm.
frozen fruit because it has more fiber in it. Put some
Right.
flaxseed in it, and then I'll either do a glucerna or I'll do another liquid Premier Protein. So I'll, make sure to get my protein in there. What I've been doing this week, because I've just not wanted to do the full smoothie, so I've just been doing a Premier Protein and then oh, where's my brain at? And then a pear or something, just as like a simple fruit. Sometimes I'll do some eggs. But and then on Saturdays we do a true brunch because we don't. I'll do a Premier Protein in the morning, but then as a family we break fast together around noon, and so my husband will cook
Mhm.
a brunch kind of because we do these chicken eggs, so we'll either do scrambled eggs with some sort of sausage, bacon, etc., whatever, or we'll do no meat other than the eggs and do like a piece of whole wheat toast or something like that, or no bread at all. And then for dinner, lunch and dinner, I tend because I do meal prep for the and I have a few small videos on my site for the last couple of weeks. we tend to focus on whole foods that can be put into one pot or a crock pot. You know? Simple meals that can just be reheated. So like this week we did a beef vegetable soup. And so throw in a lot of veggies in there that are, potatoes, carrots, green beans, things like that. We have some kale in the garden, so we need to throw some kale in there. And then I was in the mood for green chili chicken enchiladas. So,
Mhm.
I found a recipe that wasn't too crazy, still provided some good protein and fiber, and went ahead and made that. Now that my family can maybe get two of those, and I may do one or one and a half. And so that's kind of how our plates look different. And like even for soups, and I love soups, they may do a cup and a half or 2 cups. I'm doing 1 cup, and
Mhm.
that's what what satisfies me. And then, but we try to, oh, I tend to sort of say, what's our protein? And our protein can be beans, it can be anything, right? What's our protein? And then how many vegetables can I pack into that are high in fiber and just also provide the other nutrients? We do, when we have our garden truly thriving, then we're pulling stuff from the garden, especially kale, collard greens, butternut squash, things like that, or peppers. During the summer, of course, we have our cucumbers, tomatoes, yellow squash, zucchini, stuff like that. And then, but that's how our meal preps are. I have snacks. I did a pair a minute ago. I have protein bars, like the RX bars. Those are probably the favorite of the
Mhm.
protein bars that I do. But even those are mainly if I know I'm going to be out and about for a day because I do need to watch.
Right.
As I'm walking about, my blood sugar, make sure it maintains. So I'll have that to if I need it as a rescue and everything. So, because I do just have to manage my blood glucose levels, of course, if I'm active.
So tell me a little bit about your channel.
Channel. So of course, so the channel, I never, like I say, when I first started this, did not think I would go to the YouTube route or anything. I had played around with the thought of YouTube when I was talking with my husband because he's really good at DIY things and like the guard, like he's just good at it. And it's like you should have a channel, you should document this. And so people have been saying to do it for a while, but never really knew what the point of, okay, what's the point of entry, right? And so kind of started watching, and then I have to give a big shout out to Joe at Joe's Sleep and Slim Down Journey,
Absolutely.
and I know, yeah, amazing, and Hardrine Annette at the Boss Way. They have been my motivator to get, like, they literally got a group chat going to just help me figure this out, and they've just been so amazing and brilliant and just very supportive. And so it initially started with just introducing who I was. I knew I highlight the realities of raising chickens, backyard chickens,
Mhm.
because there's a space for that, and I love my chickens, and I want to talk, and my family gets a, so basically I have worn out the capacity of my family dealing hearing about my chicken stories. So guess what, world, y'all get to hear about them. And
Awesome.
so yeah, and so I have a couple of videos on them because in the last couple weeks because I've only started the channel on September 12th, right? And so I've had one with Bumblefoot since then. I had one that had it was a little bit egg bound. I didn't know what was going on with her, and then I had another one that was broody. She's been broody since the spring. And broody, that just means she wants to hatch eggs, but they will sit on a bed of nothing until they get some eggs underneath them, and they'll steal their sister's eggs, and it's insanity. So I had to break her broodiness. So that's literally just last 2 weeks in the chicken world. And then of course I do want to share about, I shared the planets aligned one day that all the things I've got to inject. So like the Zep Bound, injection, the not this doesn't show the part that's actually injected, but
Right.
the reservoir here is connected to like a internal. It's a plastic, it's a flexible needle that has to be injected, and then my continuous glucose monitor here
Mhm.
that has to be injected. So the planets aligned one day. that on one Wednesday morning, all of them needed. So it's like, let me go ahead and do a video of all the injections I get to do in a single day, right? And so, so I talk about that. I think I did a walk. I got to do my first live last Thursday, so that was exciting. And so I just kind
Yeah,
of
that was
walked
a
through
good
the
live too.
Oh, thank you. And it was nice to be able to demonstrate because I know people know what's happening. This is why I love having a continuous glucose monitor, and I write because it is something people can get over the counter whether they have diabetes or not.
Hmm.
I believe Abbott and Dexcom have one out that you can get over the counter, and it's just amazing to see whether you're again whether you're diabetic or not. It's amazing to see what your blood sugar and body because the blood, insulin and blood sugar and glucose, all those things are tied to these GLPs and why we are hungry, why we crave food, why, what's happening in our body. So it's important information to know, right? And so during my walk, you literally see, um, it's a 1-to-1 ratio of, mile or mild to moderate activity. It's a 1-to-1 of minutes of activity to the minute or to the amount your blood sugar will be decreased by.
Hmm.
So as you see me on this walk, I show it at, my blood sugar, my blood glucose at 132 and 25, 30 minutes in, it's at 114, right? But then the amazingness of this medicine on digestion and stabilization is that when I finished the walk, it was at 119. It didn't bottom out. If this had been, if that walk had happened July 15th, depending on where my blood sugar was at, you would have seen that drop. Like, so if my blood sugar was 132, it would have still been dropping into the 90s, 80s, and 70s. When I used to have to plan my workouts, and I enjoy working out in the morning, but my morning routine pre Zep Bound was wake up 5 or 5:30 whenever I finally rolled out of bed. What's my blood sugar? If it's above the 150s, I'm golden because if I do a workout, it's gonna, if I do a 30-minute workout, it's just gonna drop
Hmm.
by 30, and I'm golden. But if my blood sugar was at 100, I have to make a decision. I either just focus on strength training that day, which is fine, fair enough. I'm not going to see that significant of a drop. Or do I eat half a banana or drink a glucerna, just wait 30 minutes, see if my blood sugar increases, so then I can go do this Zumba workout I want to do, and then hopefully not drop in the middle of it. I mean, it was just and all I wanted to do was do a 30-minute workout, right? But I'm having to take 90 minutes to 2 hours to kind of get myself right before I could go work out. Don't even have to think about that anymore.
I know one time I was going to use one of those continuous blood sugars because I heard that element, one of the ingredients, could cause
Right.
sugar spikes. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a glass a day and test my blood sugar before it,
Right.
right after I drank it, and like an hour after.
Right.
And we have plenty of them because my wife was using them, and
Right.
she just convinced me to just do the finger stick instead, just
Okay.
because I would have had to set up the app and and all that kind of stuff
Okay.
to get the readings.
Well,
So
how did
it is
what
amazing.
it turn out to do? Yeah. What was the? Do you
It stayed the
remember?
same.
Kind of
It stayed the same.
did it? All right. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I said. The whatever is causing. Again, a lot of it, I'm pretty sure, is the well, it's a couple of things. It's what you're eating, first of all, because I'm not saying for everybody, but for some of us, while we may not be, I'm a low carb person or I'm a this type of person, we are choosing different types of carbs or just
Hmm.
eating less, right? Um, and so there's a difference there, but then in how those carbs are being processed, right? It's slowed down. So it's sort of in some ways it makes sense of why then now things are stabilizing a bit more when it comes to the breakdown of those carbs into your body. And then of course insulin, insulin bringing those carbs into your cells so they work like they're supposed to. So like I said, I eat carbs. I don't know that I'll ever be a no carb person. They're not the enemy. It's just the amount we are probably the enemy in the carb journey and sort of what we choose and how much we choose of it, right?
Right.
But we're ultimately, but then there are some people, of course, allergies aside, because I have a lot of people that I know that are just, they have different allergies, and so anything will impact them and inflame them. So
So, do you grow your own vegetables all year round, or is it a seasonal thing?
right. So we want to aim for all year round. I would say it's a couple of seasons. So we'll start late March. I usually try to get out the what I call, hey, if this is the only thing that grows, then I had a successful year. So like your radishes, your sugar snap peas, things like that. Typically the summer, because where I'm at, I am in Texas and stuff like that. It gets hot, and so we do have like an irrigation system. But even with that irrigation system going on, some of these plants are just not the heat hardy, if you will. And so we'll probably go into, we keep things out. Like I said, we still have some butternut squash out. I'm looking out at the garden right now. There's some butternut squash out. The watermelon still coming up. We have a few kale and some collard greens that are out there, some bell. So those things will still kind of keep going. We are going to, because the soil needs a lot of love and attention and some healing to it. So we need to amend the soil. So we're probably gonna, it's hard to call a garden. It's just especially when things are still prolific and growing. We're more than likely going to probably in the next weekend as it cools down, of course, get some. We need to amend the soil, so add some more soil, compost, all the things to it, and then just kind of clean some stuff up, determine if we need to rotate things. But we do try to. My goal though will be to, start in December, get what we can get through June. Let the garden, some stuff will still grow during the summer, like your cantaloupes, your watermelon, stuff like that. But then be able to then start again late July for a fall garden. So that's the hope. But we need to kind of take a winter. I wouldn't even call it winter, but take October, November to kind of get things healthy again. And then through this community, um, you know, through, being on a channel with some connections that Joe had and getting on a cruise channel. Some of those cruise people knew gardening people.
Mm-hmm.
And so now there's this whole community. I'm getting some seeds from from Okies Eden. He's sending me some seeds from his garden and stuff like that. And so I mean, it's just Brave New World is YouTube, right? And so, but it's good. It's good. So I'm looking forward to getting those seeds and seeing what we can do in the fall. But we do have to kind of take care of it, and because it is work. Like anything I mean, this from your life and your experience. Anything you're passionate about, there's work involved, no matter how much you love it. So.
Absolutely. So, what would you say to any type 1 diabetic that needs to lose weight? Is it worth the risk of going on Zep Bound? Should you be trying it yourself? What would you suggest to them?
I would suggest to them, first of all, establish. And this is key for any diabetic management. And if you don't have this, I would not think about starting it. So number one, establish a relationship with your diabetic care team, and not just, oh, I see my diabetic doctor every 3 months, every 6 months, run some tests, let me know how I'm doing, refills on meds. No, you have a relationship that you can. I've been sick this week. Should I adjust my numbers? You can send those numbers in and they can give you feedback. Like that's what the relationship needs to look like. So you can, whatever your portal is or whatever the phone call is, that you can connect with them. Because if you don't have your primary care, your endocrinologist or your internal medicine doctor. My primary happens to be in internal medicine, and then I have my endo. your diabetic coordinator, who, if you're, whatever your treatment method is, whether it's insulin, daily injections, um, whether you're using the pens for insulin or whether you're using a insulin pump with CGM, that you're monitoring your blood sugar. Also, I will caution, if you're no longer able to recognize your highs and lows, right? The symptoms that are involved with your highs and lows, I would caution an individual going on this. But if you're someone that you have managed your type 1 successfully, and you have that relationship with your care team, and you're struggling with obesity, have the conversation and and continue that relationship. Like I said, literally the next day I was able to send my numbers from the last 24 hours. He was able to make those adjustments, and got it all together. And then, I continue, and then I don't do it weekly. At one point I was sending my primary and my endocrinologist my weekly, sort of where I was at. I'm doing it monthly now. And so, as if I end up titrating up and down, I let them know, I always send them kind of like, hey, here's the last couple of days of me titrating up and down. What do you think? Do I need to make any adjustments? So far, I haven't had to make an adjustment since I've been on the 2.5. And so we'll see what happens. And then, so I spent the 4 weeks at 2.5. And then, since week 5, I've been on 5.0, and I'm still good on this. The food noise, I still get pretty heavily, like there's literally been days this week, Lori, that I've been kind of like, do I need to go back down to 2.5? Because there's some days it's like I don't know what food is going to enter this body, but I push past it, I get through it, I get food in me. But so far, I've not had any drops to what it was that first day. So I think I'm on a good basal rate, a good again, I'm using the insulin pump, so a good basal rate, good insulin to carb ratio, and insulin sensitivity. I think he has it set pretty well that I'm doing okay and everything. One thing I did want to know, I think I mentioned it maybe on one of the, I don't know where I mentioned it. I just mentioned it to my doctor. I have noticed, like on day 5, so I'm on day 6 now. So 5 and 6, um, I do tend to and I don't know if it's because the medicine is kind of waxing and waning on those days, even though I feel like the buildup is still pretty strong suppression wise. That I might have blood sugar readings like in the upper 140s and stuff like that. So I do, make sure to manage, because I've noticed the pattern. I just make sure to prepare for those
Mhm.
days. And then the other interesting thing that I have noticed, that if I get an elevation, like let's say I didn't take my insulin, or I didn't do my carb counting correctly, or my net carb counting correctly, and I get into the 180s, I notice that the cravings, like I'll start craving things a little bit more. So
Hmm.
I end up just drinking water and then just treating the high blood sugar, and once it goes down, it's gone. But it's just, I'm like I said, I'm gonna kind of note it, kind of, journal it when it continue, if it happens in the future. But yeah, I notice when it hits that, when it gets above 180 and stuff like that, like I'll notice some little perks of cravings show up. And like I said, I'll just try to drink water, or just manage or get something I'll eat a pickle, or drink, do some water, or do something that's, low, or like a slice of cheese or a cheese stick or something like that, to help manage it.
And just a quick question. I know when my wife had her monitor, and from what I know about some of the pumps, besides the information going to an app, hers also went right to her doctor's office, so
Yes,
that if she
yes,
called, she could say, "Hey, could you just look up my thing?" And they pull up her chart, and they'd have it right there, and she wouldn't literally have
yes.
to send it to him.
Yes, yeah, you can set up, one of the first things they have you do, whether you go to the in-person class or not, is to link that to your care team, so they can pull that information anytime they need to, or you need them to. So I just have to, on this one here, I just have to make sure, because the you know I've stuck with the brand that I'm with, which is Medtronic.
Hmm.
because I can get everything from one place. I don't have to order, I don't have to order my CGM from this company. I don't have to order my pump supplies from this. I can just literally order from one company. I mean, I now have to go through a third party carrier, so it may not matter anyway. But it was just sort of, I like the idea of being within a single system, if that makes sense. But there are plenty
Absolutely.
of good CGMs and insulin pump systems out there. And but I did, I forgot to highlight this, but this is sort of the significance of the FDA and type ones. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of looping back to your kind of initial earlier conversation, but it took almost, I'm going to mess up the years, but most of the world. So this particular model, which what's interesting about this particular model is that it's the Medtronic 780G, and it kind of has an basal system and even some bolus, like it does the auto correction or skip meals. So if it notices it rising, it will send some bolus units to try to bring it back down to target range. So it has a nice little, it's not fully closed loop system, but it has some nice systems there to kind of try to do those correction boluses for you to prevent increases or high blood sugar. Um, but because that part worked so well, there were incidents of hypoglycemia.
Hmm.
The rest of the world had this, I think, in 2021, 22, somewhere in there. It took almost 3 years for the FDA to approve the 780G for the US because of hypoglycemia
Hmm.
incidents that occur. This is specifically for, this is an insulin pump. So that, and I get it. I respect that they are concerned because that is a devastating reality. Because if people don't wake, I still wake up if I have a low. And then when I had my little puppy, I had my dog for 16 years, and of course they pay thousands of dollars to train dogs to do this now. But dogs, if your dog is close to you
Hmm.
and sleeps near you and all those things, they'll learn how to detect it. But my dog would wake me up as well, if I had lows and stuff like that. And so but luckily I still am able to wake up if I have a low, but I can feel it even before I go to bed. It's starting to go that direction. So it is very important and it is significant. So, but it speaks to why you see a lot more drugs being approved for type 2. One, because it's a greater population deals with type 2. So that's number
Hmm.
one. Let's be, upfront about that. But the other reality is because of the impact or the potential impact of hypoglycemic episodes with type 1. So that's why there's a significant amount of hesitation for the FDA to approve a lot of things.
Well, I appreciate your sharing because you're actually the first type 1 diabetic that I've interviewed, and it's very interesting. So, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make?
I think the biggest one is I just want to thank this community. I want to thank you, Lori, for what you do, and the many creators that are on here because at the end of the day, we're we're bringing number one, we're focusing on our individual lives and our journeys to pursue the best we can in our lives
Hmm.
and just happen to be sharing along the way and building this community. And then the other thing is we're providing, this community is what convinced me to move forward because I was hesitant because I was listening to everything that was on the news about it and news article and everything, like it was all the dire. Well, let's just listen to people's experiences. How did they deal with these things? What all these things. And so you're bringing in more people to something that can change individuals' lives. So I just want to thank the community for just bringing the space and having the space. And just wherever you are on your weight loss journey and however which way you're doing it, keep moving, keep going, stay active, make if walking is something you're able to do, make that a priority. And then just you know let health be something that you put number one because um There are a lot of people who have since, passed on that as much as they did their best to prioritize health, this has been a game changer and it would have been a game changer in their lives. So let's pursue the
Absolutely.
opportunities that are in front of us.
And real quickly, did I hear you right that you made your earrings?
Yeah, oh yeah. So one of the things I'm kind of been focused, I don't know how to do the thing. One of the things that I've been kind of focused on is ensuring, because I don't know where this is, this an emotional eating thing. I don't know where it falls, but I'm a busy, like I'm a bored eater. So if I'm
Mm,
bored,
me too.
I want something in front of, like, let me have some popcorn just because, let me have some popcorn. I could have just eaten dinner, right? I want popcorn now. And so I just tend to be a bored eater. So one of the things I've been focused on, and this was even before I started Zep Bound, was let me put some things into my life to keep keep me from being less bored. It's not a difference. I do make sure to have time for rest and all those things, right? So learning Italian, I'm on my little Duolingo app. I'm doing the polymer clay earrings. They're the funnest. If you just look it up. I highly recommend just everyone look up polymer clay jewelry making, and you can do other things with polymer clay, but just the patterns people make are just beautiful. They're just these mesmerizing colors, and you can make these stone formation or these watercolor formations. They're just beautiful. And then but you just can't leave it in. I mean, I guess you could. You could just leave it in the in the rolled out clay, but you eventually need to do something with them. So I've just been making the earrings and stuff. I'm only on my like fourth or fifth pair, so I'm no expert yet. But I'll try to do some clip. I owe a few people, or I want to. I shouldn't say owe, but I want to make some for some folks and some family members. So I'll try to record myself making it. So yeah, so that's kind of my newest little bit, on a Saturday or Sunday or just during the week making those because it keeps me it's mesmerizing, it's fun, it is peaceful and keeps me busy and keep my hands away from random snacks. So yeah, so I've enjoyed it.
They're great looking, and I want to remind everybody that all of your information will be linked down below in the description. So when you're done liking and watching this, please go over to it's JC Calamity Jane, her YouTube channel again, which will be linked down below. And I want to thank you for giving me all the time. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully in a couple months we could have a follow-up interview.
Oh, I would love to, Laura. You're amazing. Just keep us. You're holding the flag forward for us to what this looks like living. So thank you so much.
I
And I
try to
love
get
to.
a wide variety of people, different parts of their journey. And like I said, fascinating because you're the first type 1 diabetic. I've talked to some type 2 diabetics, but you're the first type 1 that I've talked to. So I appreciate your sharing and thank you again. And with that, I'm going to call this a wrap.